There are two main ways you can improve your English for the IELTS exam. On the one hand, you can upgrade the language you use. On the other, you can analyze and fix the mistakes that you tend to make. In today's lesson, we're going to be focusing on the mistake side of things, and in particular, 10 very common mistakes that I often hear in the IELTS exam. Hi everyone, I'm your IELTS tutor Jack, and welcome back to another IELTS Plus lesson. Don't forget, I really appreciate it when you like the video, comment below, and also subscribe to join the IELTS Plus community. I hope IELTS Plus is the place where you come to really improve yourself ready for the IELTS exam. In today's lesson, I'm going to give you 10 common mistakes. I'm going to explain each to you, and hopefully you can see what you're doing wrong and how to fix it. So let's get straight into number one. Number one is I was scary or it was scared. Both of these are incorrect, right? Scary versus scared. Interested versus interesting. These are adjectives that change depending on whether they are the cause or the feeling, the reaction. So let's take scared and scary, for example. Something is scary. That person or thing causes the emotion of feeling scared. Scared, on the other hand, is the feeling. So if you watch a horror movie, the horror movie is scary and you are scared. It's easy to understand, but it's difficult to actually do in your speaking, so make sure you practice this hard and be very aware of making that mistake. Number two is flat intonation. I hear this so much as an IELTS tutor. Basically, when someone is giving an answer, their intonation, how the voice goes up and down in pitch, is very flat. So they say, I often read books and I really enjoy watching movies in my free time. That's very flat. So there's two things you can do to fix this. Number one, try shadowing. Shadowing or mimicking is where you listen to someone and you copy them. So of course, listen to a native speaker and copy their pitch as closely as possible. Number two is focus on starting your answers strongly. So when you start your answer, say, I love reading books. Don't start very flat, start with that very strong intonation, and that will help you for the rest of your answer. Number three is a particular word, hardly. The mistake I always hear is students say, I studied hardly. Or I hardly studied. What they mean is I studied hard, hard meaning with a lot of effort. I think the reason they make this mistake is hardly sounds like the correct adverb, but hardly means almost not at all. So let me tell you an interesting phrase in English. A very common question, and it's a joke. We say, are you working hard or hardly working? These are opposites. Working hard means with a lot of effort, or hardly working means almost not at all. So we ask this as a kind of joke question in the workplace. Hopefully that helps you see the difference. Next is a pronunciation problem, and that's th versus d. I think most of my students don't make big errors with this, but particularly with grammar words like the, there, that, this. These words, because they're grammar words, we often say them quickly and without much emphasis, less stress. Unfortunately, a lot of my students pronounce them in this case with a D, so they say de, dat, der, dis. This sounds really bad to us and it has a really negative effect on your pronunciation score. So just try to put a little more effort into making sure you say the, that, there, this, and just make sure that tongue, the air can pass over the tongue and you don't trap it like a the. Number 5 is really common, and that's one of plural noun. So a typical example would be if I say, I'm one of teachers, or one of Koreans went to Australia. Now, I understand what's happening here. The student is picking one of many. But when we talk about one of many, for example, teacher, I'm one of many teachers, we use the article a. I'm a teacher. That means I'm one of many teachers. A Korean went to Australia. We use one of plural noun when the group is specific. So, for example, if you say one of my co-workers, that's perfect. One of the England squad members. It's a specific group, so it will require the article the or a possessive like my. I would say the fix for this is very often a, but it could be that you're talking about a specific group, in which case you'll probably use the article the. I would say number 6 is the most common, and that is mixing present and past. More specifically, my students don't conjugate the verbs and use the verbs in the past tense when talking about the past. It's a really simple error, but it has a massive effect on your grammatical range and accuracy. Be very aware of when you're telling a past story. I would recommend have your very common stories that you use. Maybe you talk about school. Maybe you talk about your previous job. Maybe you talk about your childhood. Whenever you talk about these 3 things, you gotta have that switch where you realize, okay, this is past tense. I must change the verbs to the past tense. Number 7 is the passive voice. Now, I could do a whole lesson on the passive voice, but let's be specific with the error I often hear. I often hear students use the passive voice with specific verbs. There's 5 common ones: happen, disappear, increase, decrease, and become. Those 5, I always hear my students say is happen, is increase, is decrease. The use of passive voice is to show that the subject receives the action rather than does the action. So typical examples would be, I was phoned by my sister. I was promoted at work. They're really good examples of receiving an action. Just be aware that verbs like I mentioned, we just use them in the active voice. So something happened, something disappeared, something increased. Just be very careful with misuse of passive voice. Number 8 is a strategy issue, and that's 2 short answers. Again, I don't want to take up too much of this video, but I have made 2 videos that I think you'll find really useful. Number 1 is my IELTS Part 1 video, the structure, because I give some good tips on how to develop your answer. Number 2 is my amazing answer strategy video. I really recommend you check this out. I put a lot of effort into that, and it's really helped some students. As one quick tip today, I would say to you, try to make a very repeatable strategy. For example, you give your direct answer, you explain it, and then you give an example. And try to repeat that in your practice, and then you'll never struggle to develop to 3 sentences or 4 sentences. 9 is a simple one, and this is using the verb play with friends. Now, I don't know about your country, your language, but in Korea, they use play with friends. In English, it's kind of childish feeling, so only children play together. The only way we use play as an adult is things like playing sport, an instrument, a computer game. If you want to talk about playing with your friends, probably you will use hang out or spend time with. Those are 2 very common verbs. finally, number 10, and this is the overuse of basic adjectives. Try to go back on your answers or just think about the way you use English. And do you think that you overuse some simple adjectives? Things like good, happy, tired. I think a lot of my students do. And you can have this really easy way to improve your lexical resource, your vocabulary skill, by using extreme adjectives, such as instead of using good, use fantastic, happy, ecstatic, tired, exhausted. It's a really easy way to boost your vocabulary and stop just using the same words all the time. So that's my list of 10 very common mistakes I hear in the IELTS speaking exam. How about you? Among these 10, which mistakes do you make? Let me know in the comments below. Also, as I said before, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and also subscribe to join the IELTS Plus community. I'd love to have you here. I've got lots more content coming. I hope you have a wonderful week this week, and I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.